This is ABTV, Animal Bites Television. For animal lovers, by animal lovers.
Hey, Brian from SnakeBytes here. Sand boas are some of the most unique snakes that I work with, and today I'm going to explain all about them. You're watching SnakeBytes. I've been working with sand boas and breeding them since I was 16 years old, and they've always fascinated me. Now, the vast majority of sand boas are live bearers, with Kenyan sand boas being the largest producer. Some big females can have over 40 babies, but a typical litter would be 12 to 20 babies. Sand boas belong to a subfamily called Eryxinae and are comprised of 15 species of non-venomous snakes. The most commonly kept species are Gaglianophis calabrinus, which is the Kenyan sand boa, Gaglianophis conicus, which is the rough-scale sand boa, and Eryx johni, the Indian smooth-scale sand boa, although there are plenty of other species kept and bred in captivity. Sand boas get their name from the fact that they burrow into the sand and are ambush predators. All sand boas have small eyes and very small scales to protect themselves from injury while burrowing into the sand. Most species also have eyes towards the top of their head to allow them to see while the majority of their heads are buried in the sand. Just take a look at how amazing these guys can burrow. One of the things that I find so fascinating about sand boas is the way that they feed. They are total ambush hunters, and once they have buried themselves, they lie and they wait. When a food item comes along, they feel the vibration and they wait for the perfect time to explode out of the sand and grab their meal. Sand boas are the perfectly adapted predator and have been around for over 50 million years. There are both Old World and New World sand boas. How many species are considered Old World? A, 8, B, 12, or C, 15? Go ahead and answer down below in the comments and check back later in the show to see if you have the right answer. For this week's Reptile Report Spotlight, we'll be highlighting Captive Bred Reptile Forums UK. Go ahead and check out the URL down below or click on the link in the description. Now, the majority of sand boas happen to be live bearer, with the exception of 3 species. And believe it or not, this is one of them right here. Now, there's the Arabian, the West African, and the Calabar burrowing python. I know you're probably saying, it's a python, how can it be a sand boa? Well, the truth is, this is actually in the same family as a sand boa, and it's certainly an egg-laying animal. It's one of the most unusual snakes that I work with. You can see they just ball up like that, which just makes it completely a bizarre animal, and they come from West Africa. And one of the more interesting traits that I find is the fact that, look at this little tail. It almost looks like a head, right? And this is sometimes called a two-headed snake because you can see the head and the tail right there. You can even see the really unusual way that it wags its tail, almost like it's a head looking around. Again, this is a way to confuse the predators. They don't know which side actually has the mouth and the eyes on it, which is really cool. And again, these are egg layers. Calabar burrowing pythons will typically have 3, maybe 4 eggs apiece. And it's been duly noted that I've never been able to reproduce these guys. And I have a small group of them, been breeding them for many years, never had 1 egg. One day, I'm going to make this happen, I can assure you of that. But as for the rest of the sand boas, they're all live bearers, and I want to give you an idea of what a gravid sand boa looks like. I tell you, they're little sausages here, and here's a female that's probably going to be having babies any day now, because this is the season that my babies start to drop. But you can just see the distension in that animal. Just look at her, she just looks so painful. She's just spread out. Now, an animal this size probably going to have between 8 and 12 little babies. And I tell you, she is just loaded up, so I'm going to leave her alone. But one of the most exciting things happened. Sam told me just an hour or so ago that we had a litter of Kenyans, so I wanted to share that with you right now. So I'm going to go ahead and just take a look and see what we have. Take a look in here. Now, this is interesting. Take a look at this really quick. you can see it doesn't look like there's anything in there whatsoever, right? But let's start poking around. Now this is Mama right here. Now Mama sometimes can be a little bit upset after she has her babies, but you see the babies right back here? Oh my gosh, and look at their anuthristics too. You can see she's actually a het anuthristic. So obviously she was bred to an anuthristic male, which means half the babies are gonna come out anuthristic and half are gonna be normal. But let's go ahead and just count them up and see what we got. We've got one anuthristic and another little anuthristic too. And you just don't know. I mean, a girl this size should probably have about a dozen babies. Here's the first normal here, and this is actually a het anuthristic because it was an anuthristic dad. And let's see, number 4 is an anuthristic, so far 3.1. Let's see here. There's another one, 4 anuthristics. Another normal, so 4 and 2. Anuthristic, 5 and 2. 5 and 3. Whew, there's the mama. And her head's right there. Trust me, she's gonna be mad. 5 and 3. 5 and 4, it's starting to even out, isn't it? Oh, there's a little anuthristic. Where did you go, little bugger? Okay, there's 6, 7 anuthristics. Whoa, this one's striking at me. Another normal. Let's see, like, oh, there's another anuthristic. Wow, there's a lot of anuthristics in this clutch. And then another normal. Wow, look at that. That is just so cool, and you gotta always be careful because look at this mom. She's still looking really good, but boy, I tell you what, she is not happy with me poking around her cage, taking her babies away. Here's another normal, and that may be the last one. The truth is, adult snake moms really don't care about their babies whatsoever. She just doesn't like me poking around, and the fact that she's, you know, basically hasn't eaten for a good probably month and a half or 2 months while she's been gravid. She's hungry and she's just mad. All live bearer females, when they have babies, are typically little jerks, but take a look at that. So what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 babies. Not too bad, 12 little babies, and look at how feisty these little guys are. Now we're gonna get these guys set up, and we're gonna get rolling. But you know, it's not all about Kenyan sandboas. There's a bunch of other species of sandboas, so let's go ahead and take a look. So we work with a handful of species of sandboas, and they're all a little bit unique. These happen to be rough scale sandboas. Now these guys are obviously much more rough scaled, hence the name rough scale, and they're a little bit more temperamental as far as their attitude goes too. And this is pretty much an adult female, so you can see they stay a little bit smaller than the Kenyan sandboas. And as far as production goes, these guys only typically have anywhere from 3 to 7 babies. My largest clutch ever was 10 little babies. So they're not nearly as high production. But one of the things that's really interesting about all sandboas is what they call sexual dimorphism. That just basically means that the females get much larger than the males. This is a 5-year-old male right here, and you can see this is a little young adult female that packs quite a little punch. She just bit me right on the hand, and trust me, for those little tiny mouths, they can really crush you. And the rough scales seem to be a little bit feisty, but I just really think they're a beautiful animal. And again, it's really cool to see that all sandboas have that sexual dimorphism. Another pretty cool sandboa that we work with are called Javelin sandboas, or Eryx jaculus. Now these guys are a little bit different than, say, a Kenyan or a rough scale sandboa. They don't have the orange in them. Now they typically are more of the size of a Kenyan sandboa, and the amount of babies is a little bit typical too, maybe 12 to 15 babies. So they come out a little bit smaller, and they certainly have more than the rough scales, but they're a really speckled animal, and they're really quite interesting. Again, they remind me more of a Kenyan, more placid animals, easier to care for, but they don't have that crazy color to them. And again, just like the other rough scales and all other sandboas, let's just take a look at one of the males. And again, this is actually a 7-year-old male. Now look at how small that is. That's a really tiny animal. And what's interesting about male sandboas is once they hit maturity this size, sometimes they'll only eat 6 or 8 meals a year. They basically just reserve all of their energy, and they don't need to grow anymore. So they're little cuties though, huh? Just take a look at that. Now the largest species of sand boas is right here. This is what they call an Eryx johni, or Indian smooth-scale sand boa, and you can see how large they are. Now these guys can actually get close to 4 feet in length, which is pretty amazing, and they're relatively bland looking as an adult, but believe it or not, as a baby they hatch out bright orange with some black banding on them. Truly incredible animals. Now something like this is only going to have about 3 to 5 babies, believe it or not. This big of an animal has large babies, probably about 3 to 5 times the size of a Kenyan sand boa. So these guys will come right out of the mom and start eating fuzzy mice right off the bat. Now there is one morph in the Indian smooth scales, and that's the sunset morph. You can just see how beautiful it is. Believe it or not, the normal Indian smooths typically look similar to this as babies, but as they get bigger, they dull out into kind of a brown patternless animal, whereas the sunsets stay just like this. Now that is an incredible animal. Now overall, when it comes to sand boas, there's not a ton of morphs, but Kenyans do have a handful of really cool things. Let's go ahead and take a look. Now Kenyan sand boas are relatively polymorphic, having quite a few paint jobs, but it all started with this little guy right here, which is an aneurystheristic, which means that it's lacking the red pigment. In the sand boa's sense, it's actually lacking the yellow pigment as well, so it could be called an axanthic too. It's just basically black and white animal. But this was the very first mutation that came into Kenyan sand boas, and it's been a long time, probably close to 20 years ago. Now right after that, someone bred an albino Egyptian into a Kenyan, which are different species, and actually produced the first albinos. But then a few years later, an actual albino came into the country that looked just like this, but it was a little bit peculiar because it had big normal splotches on it, which we call paradoxing. Well, it just so happens that paradoxing in most mutations isn't recessive, but in this case it is actually recessive. So the albinos that come out paradoxing, and these are 100% pure Kenyan sand boas and absolutely spectacular. And then of course, what were you going to do? You were going to breed aneurystheristic to albino, right? And that's when you pop out a snow paradox Kenyan sand boa. And again, what we're lacking here is we're lacking the red, the yellow, and the black pigment. But you can see this little guy has the paradoxing as well, which is just really cool, and it adds a little bit of character to that albinism, in my personal opinion. Now there's actually a sand boa that's called a Rufuscan sand boa, and it's a kind of patternless sand boa, kind of all brown, and stays pretty small. And some people bred that into Kenyans and got the striped version of Kenyan sand boa, which is just really beautiful. I mean, it's just got a little bit of striping down its back, and as babies, they're really bright. And there's actually a ton of other Kenyan sand boas out there that I don't even work with, certainly on my wish list to expand my color morphs of Kenyan sand boas. I don't know, guys. I hope that you can appreciate these amazing creatures for what they are, something that you don't see around a lot, and certainly are completely different than almost any snake I work with. I tell you what, I'm completely in love with sand boas. Now make sure to keep that passion for reptiles. There are both Old World and New World sand boas. How many species are considered Old World? If you said B, 12, you're 100% correct. Good job. So there it is. I hope you guys enjoyed the show and now understand why I love sand boas so much. And as always, I'm Facebooking and tweeting my way through it. So make sure to follow me over at SnakeBytesTV. Till next week, you've been watching Snake Bites.
Hi, I'm Peter Birch, an Aussie bloke who loves wildlife. My respect for nature started when I was a young boy in rural New South Wales. Since then, it's exploded into an obsession. New episodes every Thursday, only on AnimalBytesTV.